Hey, all, we're back again. So, a couple of things have happened, and we're getting along with some progress. Horizontal stabilizer and elevator have been infilled and layered with spackle and sanded, cut to shape. Again, with the 80 grit sandpaper, process I call carving, which is taking the roughly infilled part and carving it down into its approximate profile, leading and trailing edges, the wing tips, or in this case the stabilizer tips, and then the two halves, and we just sand it, get it smooth, roughly get the leading and trailing edges to shape and size to profile. And then as more additional layers of filler are put on, we go to lesser and lesser grit sandpaper. From here, 80, we go down to 120 grit. And from 120, I'll go to 180, and then finally 220. And by 220, I'm using the sand and seal stuff, this stuff, to to seal it. And also it tends to have a reaction with the spackle. It hardens the spackle. It makes it a lot more, So anyway, vertical fin and rudder, horizontal stabilizer and elevator are infilled, and pretty much as far as this process goes, they're done. We still have to cut the rudder and the elevator free. We'll get to that. Method for that is to take the plan sheet, lay it over the part. That tells us where the lines are. That's where we'll do our either demarcation lines will go there, or I'll actually cut the parts free. No glue was used, in the seams between where the parts were separated. They're just spackled over. But if we cut, sand, respackle the edges, and finish them with strip stock balsa, we can get a nice tight joint and fit between the two halves. You can see here there's a bit of a difference in profile. This edge not quite sanded as smoothly as this one. So we use light and shadow. We use the different grits of sandpaper, but we also use the variable thicknesses of material as we're laying on top sheets of balsa, and that gives us a nice clear definition of how far in do we want to go here through the surface layer of 16th balsa down into the part, the kit part. And we see that with the reveal that we see after we do some sanding. We sand through the top sheets and start getting into the kit part, and or the underlying balsa, whichever it happens to be. So see, we still got a little more shaping to do, and it shows up real good there in the light. All right, shows up really well in the light. So now I'm just going to cut free this tail cone part. This part is the covering for back in this area, and I'm not sure I'm going to use this plastic. Typically I just check these parts to see how good, how close they are to fitting the way I want them to. If they fit, and they don't look horrible, I might use them. But I also save the option of just using balsa strip stock and then infilling and sanding and making the part out of wood the way the whole fuselage is going to be. So there's that possibility yet. Like I said, I just want to cut this part free, sand it along the edges to get them clean, and then see just exactly how it fits. Like I said, if it does the job, I'll probably use it. It's a time saver. If it's right. And it's not a big deal if I check the part and it doesn't work. I'm not losing too much time. it's pretty easy to cut these out and get them cleaned up. And plus, it's good practice for when they get to the important parts, the cowling and the nacelle parts. I'm going to want to be very precise when I'm cutting those free and when I'm shaping them and everything else. So this amounts to pretty good practice for that eventuality, for when we get to that point on the build. You know, modeling's like everything else. You know, if you take a break from it, or you can lose your touch a little bit. So what we have on here is there's this lip of plastic that goes around. We can't really get right into where we want to when we're cutting these parts out. So that's when you have to use the sandpaper. And you want to use a kind of a coarse grit. You don't want to go laying into the part here, because with the coarse grit sandpaper, it could take quite a bit of effort, you know, and a lot more sanding to erase those scratches. So you're going to try not to scratch the part on the paint surface. Just take the edges off. It's really difficult when you're doing a canopy. The clear parts, you know, when you cut them free, they have this same lip, the same excess plastic on them, and so you can't really sand those. Those have to be kind of trimmed using a brand new X-Acto blade and a couple of choice words and a great deal of care and precision. Alright, so the last part we have to pull off of here is this. So always take the marker and delineate the line that I'm trying to get into. I want to see where the point of the blade is, and I'm probably going to put a new one on here. And if you're buying number 11 blades and anything less than this 100 pack, you're really throwing money away. You're buying those little 5 packs or whatever they are, the little tubes, or small packages of these blades, 10 packs. You know, you're paying quite a bit extra over the 100 pack. Anyway, because otherwise, if you don't have a lot of these on hand, aside from the money, you're a little bit slower to replace a blade, which means you're more likely to be using dull blades, just because you don't want to keep changing them out. And if you're doing that, you know, you're kind of creating more work for yourself in the long run, because you're not getting a clean cut. That's really hard to get into that tight area there, is what he said. If you're not changing the blades out, you're using dull blades, you know, you're just creating more work for yourself. Crushing your balsa wood cuts and damaging plastic parts, you know, if you're not being careful, and if you're using a dull blade. Alright, let's see what that did. So we've creased it, or creased it? What's the word again? Score cut. So you get the nice, you know, get some good score cutting. Keep going back to the line, dragging the tip of the blade through the line, scoring the line. Pretty soon the part should just fall out, and you get a nice straight cut there. Again, there's a plastic edge now on the inside instead of the outside. A little bit less to worry about typically when it's on the inside. However, if it's butting up against something solid, it's still going to be a problem. So it's going to hold the part off. Let's see where that put us and what this looks like. So, yeah, see, you got to squeeze the thing in. If you want to use this part, where are you gonna? Am I gonna tack it just around the front edge and here at the tip and leave these loose? Because if I try to pinch these all together and glue to the maximum amount of surface area along these sides here, I'm going to get a deformed tail cone. It's just not going to look right. So I'm pretty sure what we're going to do here is just throw in some strip stock, continue these couple of these lines down, not all of them. I don't have to run all of these. Probably 3 will do it. A strip here, 1 in the middle, and 1 towards the lower keel on each side. So a total of 6 little stringers, and then a couple of little infill wedges, and then we'll sand it all smooth, and that'll look a lot better than trying to get this on there, you know, okay-ishly. You know, oh that's okay, you know. No, I don't know. I don't think so. You know, the tighter you squeeze it at the sides, the more it bows off of the fuselage at the bottom. It creates a gap there. Yeah, I'll think about it some more. It might, you know, might be easier to use that with the lighting in the tail, but I don't know. I don't know. Just one cover to put on once I run the light out, figure out where I'm going to attach it, and then just pop a cover on here, you know, and let it bow out like that. It's going to be glued up underneath the horizontal stabilizer, so it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, pinched in and tied to the sides of this part here. Thinking that way, it might not be a bad idea to go ahead and use it, and then just fairing it into the fuselage with filler, like we did with all the different plastic parts on the P-47. If you want to, you know, kind of look at that, the P-47 build, when I put the side vents on and the lower ventral exhaust for the turbine, you see how all that was faired into the fuselage. It turned out pretty good, so at least I think so. So maybe we'll use it. I'll put it in here with the forward cabin fuselage report. I think the next thing to come off of here is going to be this, the old nose cone, and then that'll be after the fuselage is all infilled and sanded and smoothed out, and then the nose cone and the cabin section will go on. We'll fair those in and just do that little bit of light sanding to get that all smooth around the edges of the nose cone and the cabin roof. So these 2 parts here. See, this is the top. Let's pull this off of here. Just, I don't think I need to worry about losing it, he said famously. I can keep track of it. Just want to check something real quick, because that's, oh, I like to jump ahead. I've marked the top, or what I believe is the top of this part. I think it was oriented on there this way. If looking straight down on it, it appears, I mean, to my eye, looking inside profile and looking at the front of it, it's not marked anywhere in the plan sheet or which is the top. And if you get it sideways on the airplane, it's going to look silly, so it's going to look pretty bad. So I think that's top dead center there. That looks about right. A little bit flat on the top and then drawing down to the lower fuselage the way it does. So anyway, these last two will be the last 2 parts to go onto the fuselage, and after all the infill is done and all of this is sanded and prepped for paint, not quite all the way, but pretty much prepped for paint, and then these 2 parts go on. Now the way I put these round parts on typically on a nose cone, front of the fuselage, forward cowling on a single engine, like I did with the P-47, is I'll cut out a piece of balsa 3/32 typically. It can be 1/8 inch, it can even be 16th. 16th's a little too flimsy. But 3/32, and we'll trace around the circumference of the part onto the balsa, cut the balsa, and then just sand around, working around the outside edge of that balsa until that disc fits neatly in and flush with the back of this part. It's creating a bulkhead or attached right to it, and then that's what this is glued to. So what you end up with, instead of just having this tiny mating surface to the airplane, you've got a whole bulkhead that's already completely, it's well adhered to the inside lip of the part, because you smeared that with the adhesive, captured it flush. And what I do is I'll set the disc down once I know that it fits, ladle the glue into this inside edge, and push the part down onto the disc using the deck to get it to go insert into the part flush and flat, so it's not offset or crooked. And then that becomes your mating surface, that whole wooden disc, instead of just this tiny edge of plastic. Now that whole disc is your mating surface, and what that does is it allows you to be a little more aggressive with your light grade sandpaper. You're not so concerned about sawing through that glue joint, because that glue joint isn't just at here within a 1/16 of an inch of the edge of your plastic part. It's the whole thing. It's that new bulkhead that you made for the part. And then filler can be applied, to any discrepancies, any little gap that might be created by either the disc protruding slightly or your sanding being a little aggressive. So then you come back with your filler, lay that all around, and really with a light, probably just 220 grit sandpaper, can clean that seam all the way down to zero. Till you can't tell that there's a part and that it's not actually part of your fuselage or whatever you're attaching to. Okay, I can't do that with this part necessarily. It has to overlap this bulkhead, which gives it a solid gluing surface